ugly weed can be better than good looking weed. We're in this age of Instagram where social media has made cannabis have to look amazing. People do not belong in prison for cannabis. There's too many people making too much money off it. Oaxacan times Malawi, which I'm actually growing in my backyard this year.
Really?
It's amazing, and it's like the craziest terp profile. It's super funky.
Yeah.
Almost disgusting. So some people smell it, they're like, whoa, you're gonna smoke that? And I'm like, that's gonna be amazing.
The Grow World community is home to over 23 countries of the biggest commercial cannabis growers in the game. Growers join our community to trial new solutions in their facilities, such as lighting, nutrients, media, and more. So if you own, operate, or work at a commercial cultivation facility anywhere in the world, join the movement for free at growworld.com. We have hundreds of products and services you can trial today. Take your grow to new heights and try before you buy. Here's a quick list of some of our most popular trial campaigns that made this tour possible. There are 3 top needs as a commercial cultivator that are all met with Faven lights. Number 1, yield, so you can stay in business, right? Number 2, quality, to actually sell through your packs. And number 3, uniformity, so you can actually charge top dollar per pound. Faven under canopy lights help with yield, quality, and color of your plants. And on average, Faven delivers 25 to 35% yield increase, which is incredible. They help with the reduction of low quality SKUs and uniform color, shape, and density. So a huge shout out to Faven. They're the title sponsor of the Grow World NorCal tour. We could not have filmed these farms without their support. So sign up for a free trial today and help your facility increase those yields as well. So James, welcome to the Grow World podcast. I am here in Oakland at your facility and super happy to be chatting with you.
It's great to be on your show. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And your facility is pretty unique. You have both cultivation and the most epic podcast studio ever.
Yeah, so our brand, we have cultivation partners that we work with all over the U.S., but especially Washington and California. Those are the 2 epicenters of the James Loud genetics as far as what we're doing genetics-wise outside of our facility. But what we do here is we do a little bit of variety testing and pheno study, and we're looking for new cultivars. So cultivation really isn't our specialty, although we do some cultivation for that purpose. We don't sell any flower on the market.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, we plan to release some collaboration flower through other brands, that cultivation partners in both states, with the James Loud brand, and also our lifestyle brand, which is Loud Times.
Loud Times. I like that.
Yeah, Loud Times right here. This is our logo. This is the James Loud logo that we've had for about 2 years. My partner came up with it. You know, I think the logo embodies all that we are. You know, it's kind of a retro throwback. We're not trying to be hype. I believe our brand is the next Gore-Tex, right? So what we're trying to do is make brands the best they can, right?
Yeah.
So I want to improve the genetics to the point where they stand out on the market. We're offering something different, something that everybody likes, but also I want to empower the people that buy our genetics to get better results. So a lot of what we do at our facility is A/B testing. So we're doing testing not only with the genetics, but also with the lighting. A huge part of what we do is with Grow World, because Grow World provides so many different manufacturers of different products. It provides us access to them, and we're able to then work with them, give them honest feedback on how their products can be better. And I think it's an amazing platform, especially for what we do, because I'm testing different nutrients, I'm testing lights, I'm testing substrates, and we do these A/B tests and these trials where it's like, okay, let's run these side by side with the same cultivar. Let's see what kind of results we get. under canopy, we're using Faven. We got Horizon Light Lift. These are both contacts that I've met with you guys. And then what about combining them together? Now, one thing that I'm doing different than a lot of people is, okay, let's see what it does for seed production. I know that with autoflower genetics, I can get 45,000 seeds per 4x4. Now, if I throw an under canopy, what does that look like? If I use a light lift to actually concentrate the PPFD, what does that look like? Now, what happens if I use both? Nobody's done that before with the light lift and the under canopy. We're going to be really concentrating the light. We're not going to be cleaning the bottom out. I'm a huge fan of under canopy, and I'm a huge fan of innovation, and I'm not scared to try anything. So it's a lot of fun.
And you have that mindset, right? It's an R&D mindset from both the cultivars and pheno hunting, but also in the technology that you're using, right? You're always trying to tinker and find what that best recipe is.
Right. And a huge part of what the non-glamorous part, but a huge part of what we do is data collection, right? So we are constantly evaluating what we do and how we can make it better. It's, I mean, and that goes along with employees and everything. It's like, how can we do the best for the plant, but how can we improve it and constantly improve it? And to be honest, we have to be honest with ourselves. When we're looking at these things, it's like we have to give honest feedback. And some of these things involve, we can look at lab results. We can look at COAs and find out, okay, well, this test's really high in THC, but that's not the end all be all. We collect 50 points of data on each cultivar.
Wow.
Right. And so it's a little over 50, but we collect 50 as a baseline, right?
Per cultivar.
Per cultivar, right? And so we're testing, up to 700 different things at one time, but we also work with people in different climates. And so we're testing those same cultivars outdoors in different climates to see how they perform. We work with a company called Phenome Networks, and they have Phenome One software. And then their handheld software that we can use with an iPad or an iPhone is called Phenotop. And basically you can go record all these data points. Some is just measuring node length. We weigh the cultivar, as a whole plant. We weigh it as the main stem. We do a dry and wet weight, right? So those are just a handful of the things that we look at the fade. So we're looking at the color. We're looking at, the structure, how it's shaped. We're taking pictures of it. We're really dialing in these different varieties and looking at from a scientific lens, but also like what is the best commercially viable genetic that we can create, and I think looking at it like that, these things happen over time. A lot of the data we're collecting may not be that important for a few years, but the beauty of this is with this data collection, we can then go, and they're working on AI right now to do predictive modeling. So the more data that we have that we can feed into that, the better results we can get, right? So we can breed from point A to point Z and skip a whole bunch of steps potentially.
Exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. It's data-driven breeding. We're not doing GMO. I'm not looking forward to GMO, but I'm excited that other people are doing it. I'm not totally against it, but I don't think it's fully necessary for cannabis. I'm not afraid of anything, right? So I'm not afraid of trying stuff out, even if it doesn't work out. I think you learn from your mistakes. That's one of my biggest takeaways in life is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Try as many things as you can, and then I've developed a palate for cannabis over years. I have a background in culinary arts. I was a chef. I went to culinary school a long time ago, like our good friend Sergio.
Yep.
And a lot of people, Shord Brooks is another, he was a chef as well.
Was that right? I didn't know that.
So many.
Shord was a chef.
Ariane Roskam.
Ariane was a chef.
He was a chef. He was a cook. A lot of us worked in kitchens.
Huh.
And so a lot of that translates. And I'm not just talking about the food side, but the work ethic, right? Like to work in a kitchen,
you hustle
have to
in a kitchen or you're out.
You're out, but you're only as good as your last plate, right?
Only as good as your last harvest.
Only as good as your last harvest. And it takes a certain type of mindset to be able to go from a kitchen into a grow room and be able to successfully harvest your flower and repeat it over and over and over again. And a lot of it is passion driven. It's because you love doing it. And that's why you're there. That's why I was in the kitchen. I love food, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in the room with my plants because I love that. I love this whole thing. I love being part of something that's so much bigger than myself. I have a great team, and I love collaboration. I've always loved collaboration. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been working as a collaborator for a long time. I think, Marlon Asher, who's one of my good friends, I've been collaborating with him for over 10 years. We've done a whole bunch of amazing things together with my original company, Loud Seeds, and now James Loud Genetics, which is me and my partner, Eric. It's been a great run. And, I wrote a book. We've been doing all kinds of fun stuff.
You absolutely have. And also travels. You've been to Cannabis. You've been in other European countries. You're starting to see the global market as a whole open up. And I'm sure since your days back in Amsterdam, right, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I think around 2009, I started this company called Loud Seeds. And Loud Seeds was started. My name was James Loud before there was a Loud
That's your
Seeds.
real name.
No. So Loud Seeds.
What?
So the
James is not your real name?
Well, no, my real name is James.
Okay.
My
The
real-
loud part.
Everybody knows me. Yeah, it was Jimmy back in the day and James. But how this started was I had flour that I was selling pounds of, and I was selling it to these trap houses in Oakland, and it was called Loud. And so it was Loud, and these guys were like, Mr. Loud, come over with that Loud, and like it became a thing. And Mr. Loud, it was funny at first. These guys thought it was funny, and then it turned into James Loud, and then people called me James Loud from that. And then I kind of embraced it. And when I wanted to start a seed company, I wanted to call it Loud Seeds. And my friend who named the strain Loud, he's the one who was like, yeah, that's cool, run with it. He didn't want to really be fully a part of a seed company at the time, which he later became my good business partner with the seed company. But I had a lot of friends laughing at me, thinking that, yeah, go ahead, start a seed company. Yeah, a lot of good that's going to do you. That's the seed companies. It wasn't a thing back then. So I had people thinking that it was pretty funny that I wanted to start a seed company. And I
Look at
saw
you
that.
now.
Yeah, and I mean, I started from a young age reading High Times. I think when a lot of guys were reading Playboy magazine, I was there reading High Times magazine, and I fell in love with weed at a very young age. The flower always got me excited. Reading
Yeah.
magazines and seeing stories of guys like Ariane
Yeah.
Roskamp, and so many other people, and I guess they were outlaws back then. And slowly the world is embracing these people, and it's such a beautiful thing.
It really is.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how far we've come since 91 when I first started smoking, when it was super illegal. And then we had the Prop 215 days when it was like not illegal, but it wasn't legal. It was medical, and you could still get in trouble. People were still going to prison for a long time. To now, a lot of people don't remember those days. We so easily forget our history. And I think a lot of people don't realize how dangerous and how hard it was, but also that's why the price was so high. I mean,
That's right.
the price per pound when I was younger, there was outdoor for $4,500 a pound.
Damn.
And this is in the 90s. And the sour diesel was more expensive than the indoor weed, at $4,500 a pound. And my buddy Josh Freeman grew some of the best. My buddy Joe Randolph also grew some of the best sour diesel out there. And sour diesel has been around, like that's kind of what put me on the map. We
With
had
Sour
a,
D.
yeah, and there was a strain called Original Loud, which I named Original Loud, which was the Loud, and we had seeds of it. And then my partner Micah, he created the 7A sour. We had basically from back crossing, right? And that became really big. I made the seeds for it, and he was kind of the brains behind it. And I've been one of those guys who loves making seeds. Ever since I first started making seeds, playing around with it, I've loved it. I love male plants, working with the male plants, using the pollen. I love collecting pollen, storing pollen. Everything about pollen, it excites me because it's like you're doing stuff that a lot of people don't do. And I feel like it's important to learn how to grow really good first, because if you don't do that, it's really hard to make the plant express. But yeah, so I mean, a lot of people think my last name is Loud, and that's fine.
Yeah, I thought it was this whole time.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a brand.
yeah, it is a
right?
brand, and it's like I'm friends with Trey Cool from Green Day. That's his name is Frank Wright the Third.
Really?
He's Trey Cool because he's Frank the Third.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is incredible. So bring us to the future here, James Loud.
Yeah.
You are an American breeder and grower, and you have traveled all around the world, and you're starting to see these markets open up.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're going to be 10 years from now from like a breeding standpoint?
Well, I got into the international market really quickly. So I started out in Spain and I went to Amsterdam with my partners because you couldn't form a seed company in the United States. It was illegal at the time. Until they passed the Farm Bill, it was illegal to form a seed company in the United States. We still had our brand in the US. There was DNA Genetics. Adam Dunn was doing his thing, Cali Connection. There was a High Times article on the kings of cannabis that was on the US companies, right? And there was like DNA, Loud Seeds, Cali Connection. I think TH Seeds was on there because Adam Dunn, those guys, DNA and Adam Dunn, they paved their way. But as far as I saw the international market opening up early, and I got excited about the international market early. Amsterdam, they've been in this, since the 70s, it was decriminalized over there. It's really weird how they have their laws. And then Spain opened up really big in the mid 2010s, early 2010s, where it was super legal. They've taken a couple steps back. But the international market excites me a lot. The potential, you've been to Colombia just filming. I was in Colombia with Earth's Healing. I went down there with Miles and, a lot of fun. And I see the potential for where it's going to go. And that really excites me, right? Where it's going to go genetically, where it's going to go across the board. The fact that Colombia is export only. And then we've got
fascinating.
Totally. Well, and Portugal is a lot of their cannabis is for export, right? And
into Germany, into other European markets.
Yeah, and I think, so let's talk about Germany for a little bit, though. Germany is like, there's a cap of 10,000 pounds per year. And people are like, 10,000 pounds, that's like 5 tons. That's a lot. Maybe it's 20,000, but either way, that is not a lot of cannabis. And for what's produced on a global scale, that's what's limited. They're going to try to produce a lot of it in their country, which I think they should. So I think there's a lot of places like Portugal, 100% banking on selling everything to Germany. Colombia selling everything to Canada also, because Canada is another heavy exporter, right? And so these countries need to go recreational too. I think I'm excited. Domestic market everywhere, and then that invites tourism, right? So the second we have the domestic market, that starts inviting tourism into the communities.
That's a great point.
And that's what excites me. I look at Jamaica's like that, right? So you have cannabis tourism, which for Jamaica is huge. They've got their reggae scene and they've got all this other stuff. And then there's islands like St. Vincent where it's medical. They got a lot of people that want to smoke, a lot of people that do smoke. But I feel like that's a special place because the government supports it. I lectured for the Cannabis Authority in St. Vincent with Marlon in 2018. Cannabis Authority is their governing body that manages cannabis. And it was supposed to be a half-hour lecture, and we ended up lecturing for 3 hours.
Wow.
One of the most amazing things I've done, because it was the first time in my life where I saw the government fully in support of cannabis, especially from a medical level, and questioning, well, what is this? What is that? What are terpenes? That was a big thing. Like, what are terpenes and what are cannabinoids? And the higher the THC, does it get you more high? And it's like they had really valid questions, and they were really interested in stuff from a scientific perspective. How can we help the people? And I feel like in the United States, we've been a thorn in the side of the government more than anything, where we've had to pressure them into letting it become legal, right? Pressure them from a medical perspective. And we're not even there federally. So genetically, where we're going, I would love to see all these places have their own thing genetic-wise. And I think genetics are the future, but I think I'm giving some seeds to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'm going down there. Marlon and I went down there in 2018. He brought me down there, introduced me to the Minister of Agriculture. I made a promise that I was going to bring back banana crosses for them. I've made those crosses. They let me import seeds last time legally. So I was one of the first people to import seeds.
Incredible.
I think I was the first person to import them legally into the country. We are going to import them again legally. And I have 20 different banana crosses that I made with all kinds of varieties. And it was really fun and exciting, but it's going to be great to gift those people seeds, right? And potentially empower the people to improve their lives. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we're giving back in a way that we can. It doesn't cost me much, right? But I think that it could have a huge impact. And if nothing else, it's the right thing to do.
And why banana crosses?
St. Vincent and the Grenadines, their economy was built on the banana, surrounded by the banana. I mean, if you go down there, you hear the stories of how the banana basically built the economy down there. And so, what better way to give back than to give banana crosses that they can label as their own? I don't need the credit for it. I'm giving those to the people. I'm super excited to go down there. Some of the poorest people I've ever seen in my life were in St. Vincent, right? And within that population of extremely poor people, kids that didn't have shoes, stuff like that, I saw a level of happiness that you just don't see here, right? You don't see that in the United States. People with no money or very, very little money were extremely content and extremely happy. And so I feel like if there's a way I can give back to them, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be able to give back.
Right. It's that
You
legacy that we were talking about.
Right. Eventually with life, you start looking as you get older. I didn't really start thinking about it much until I got in my 40s.
Okay.
What is my legacy? What am I giving back? What is going to be here long after I'm gone? Or what can I start with the domino that I push over that's going to have impact, whether I get the credit for it or not. What can I do to make this world a better place? What am I leaving behind for family and friends? And then 100 years from now, is there going to be anything left? Because I think most people won't have known me because I won't be alive, obviously in 100 years.
Who knows?
You never know these days. But I'm not planning for that. I'm planning on life is short. I need to do as much stuff as I can while I'm here.
Right.
I need to have as much impact as I can. I wrote a breeding book, and I'm one of those people who believes that we need to be solutions based. Everything I do is to solve a problem.
That's right.
Right? Whether it's genetics, and all these things that I do, whether it's the cannabis breeding book or my podcast, it all circles around genetics, right? And so being able to provide the best genetics possible for my customers and people in the world, and I think that that's kind of what sets us apart from other companies is that we're really aiming to provide the best genetics possible with a game plan and using science and data, which a lot of people are like, I'm going to cross this with this and I'm going to sell seeds. We're not that company. We're going to cross this with this intentionally and breeding with intent. We're going to test it out and then we're going to offer it to the world. Now, some companies are like, I have the most stable seeds. None of them have intersex traits. I will release stuff with intersex traits if I think it's worth releasing. And Mike from Exotic Genetics, he's the one who got me on this. I was kind of like a little bit of a hater, and I love his work, right? So Mike is one of the guys I look up to in the industry. He's someone who I think does really good work, but he also has stuff that has hermaphrodites, right? So he has stuff that herms out. He gets a little bit of hate for it, but I talked to him about it, and he's like, okay, so if they pop a 10-pack of seeds, right, and then they have herms on 2 plants, but they find something really amazing in there, was it worth the money? And I would have to agree with him that sometimes there's special stuff in there. And he's not trying to sell those seeds to somebody who's planting an acre that their crop might get ruined. He's selling these to a lot of people that are popping 10 seeds looking for something special. And I believe that if you disclaim it on your label, you tell people that, yeah, there's the potential for this or that, or there's an increased chance that you're going to have intersex traits. I think that that's the best way to go about it. But also test your stuff so that you know it has a problem, right? Sometimes we release stuff or we give away freebies in the sense that maybe we'll get some feedback from customers. We don't have time to test everything. But all this stuff excites me. It's fun.
That example is almost like as your little kid opening up a bag of baseball cards.
Right.
Right? You never know what you're going to get.
No. You might get the Billy Ripken fuckface card. I don't know if you remember that, but there was a Billy Ripken card.
I don't think I ever got one of those.
Yeah, so I had all of them. They had all these different versions of it, but there was Billy Ripken, and I believe it was like 1988 or something like that. So
Okay.
before your time.
Uh-huh.
But he had a baseball bat, and on the bottom of the bat, they had written "fuckface." And so this was a big deal back then. It was really cool to
Damn.
have that card, and it was worth a lot of money. I think it was worth $400 at the time. Like it was a
Wow.
rare card. And yeah, so there's rare stuff in there, in those baseball cards, basketball cards,
And packs of seeds.
and packs of seeds. Absolutely.
So you're at the forefront of American breeding, and I really think, James, that the future 10 plus years out are American growers figuring out their brand, building their brand, and then exporting those genetics. I think a lot of the flower that we'll be consuming and, concentrates in this country will be imported, at least from the raw material standpoint. And I see our great export is our culture and our genetics. In markets like Germany, Australia, Israel, Brazil. Brazil's coming online right now. That's a
can't wait.
massive market.
It's the biggest country in South America, and they're going to have so much pull and impact on the rest of South America and on the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty exciting. Now, within that, a lot of what we're doing is working on genetics, putting them in different climates, because I think the future is not just indoor cultivation. I think the future is mixed light and outdoor. I think regional outdoor is an amazing thing. Cannabis grown all around the world, where this country can put a stamp on it. This is their export. Bananas from St. Vincent. You got these banana
Like
flavors.
an Appalachian region, like a Champagne or
Absolutely
Malbec
like that,
or whiskey.
but something that can empower the people. This is kind of what we do here. And then my job as a breeder is to find stuff that's optimal for those environments, right? I mean, it's been an ag model forever, but like really finding stuff that performs well optimally in different climates, right? And
Interesting.
then going around climate to climate, it's completely different from one place to the next. I use the Costa Rica example a lot. My friend Tim had OG Kush grown in Costa Rica and then OG Kush here. So you get two completely different expressions when you smoke it, when you look at it,
Wow.
all of that.
Just because of the environment.
The environment, the elevation, the climate's different. So we're looking
Soil.
at humidity, soil, all these things. Now,
Damn.
indoor, you can mitigate a lot of that. There's a lot of things you can do indoor that you can't do outdoor. Like, it's like McDonald's, you get French fries anywhere in the United States, they're the same. But now, if you're taking a plant and you're growing it outdoors somewhere in the U.S., whether it's Florida
Right.
or whether it's, Seattle, right? Using those two extreme opposites, you're going to get different plants, right? They have different growing seasons.
And we should celebrate that.
We should identify it, celebrate it. And I don't know that every place is ideal for growing cannabis. I think there's places that are too hot and too cold. And I think there's genetics that will perform optimally in certain places, but then you start getting into the extremes, and maybe those aren't the best places for cannabis cultivation. And when I say cannabis, I mean hemp. We're talking about, under the Farm Bill, it can be hemp, anything that's not Delta 9 THC, which is such a wide variety of plants. I would like to see more rare cannabinoids in the world. I think people are going to put more of a focus on them in the future.
What would be a couple examples?
THCV.
THCV.
But there's so many. I mean, that's just one example.
CBG.
CBG is another great one, and then ratios of CBD is great. And then extraction, kind of pulling those apart potentially. And then I do like full spectrum medicine, but I think we need to really study what these things do. Drug discovery can be a word that scares people, but I think it's so important with this drug in particular that we really fully research it and we understand it better so that we can help people, from a medicinal aspect.
That's right.
And I think that's the beauty of the plant is it does heal so many things and it does help with so many things, so many different things.
We're scratching the surface.
Totally.
Right. And I think you're also at the forefront of these trends around breeding in particular. Are there some kind of recent discoveries you can share with me today?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that as far as recent discoveries for us, we're diving in. The thing is a lot of people like this purple candy gas. So 80% of what I do breeding these days is for color, stuff that checks the boxes in the market, right? And people might hate on me a little bit for that, but that's what sells, right? And so
All day.
80% of what I do, this has to be looked at from a business perspective. So as far as the genetics, we license genetics, we sell seeds, we sell clones, we do tissue culture, but 80% of what I do is going to be purple candy, right? It has to be purple. It has to be candy, and it doesn't have to be dark purple. It can be
Like grape
light
gas.
purple. It can have like grape gas, but there's a fade, and it varies from dark purple all the way to like light purple, right? Or just speckled purple, where
It's
the
just
bracts are slightly purple.
What consumers are buying
It's what people
that
want in the
dictates
market.
the market.
For California genetics, that's what people are expected to get right now. And this will change. I promise you this will change. And I like green weed. I hope we can all make green weed great again. I think I want that hat. But and I wear that hat. It's like I like Skittles, right? People like Skittles. That's a good one. So that doesn't really, it's candy though, right? But how many candy genetics or crosses are better than Skittles, right? Not a lot. Moonbow is good. And then there's Rain Shadow runs from Canna Organic. That's really good. Those are both Washington, by the way.
Yep.
Those guys in Washington know what
Shout
they're
out
doing.
Pacific Northwest.
Totally. And there is a handful of Skittles crosses that are good, but not better than Skittles as far as for that candy. Same thing with the purple candy gas. It's like we have all these things that are just derivatives of each other. We need to start incorporating stuff that's outside the box, adding some more genetic diversity, and sneaking some landrace genetics in there. They could still check the boxes. You're getting something with something else that's really special. I really like Fort Collins Cough. I'm breeding with the Fort Collins Cough. We did some really fun stuff. And that's a skunk strain.
Okay.
And it was found, Fort Collins Cough. I was talking about Shoreline. So yeah, we're doing some really fun breeding with Shoreline. And Shoreline is actually the Texas Shoreline. They got the seed. I believe it was a bag seed found at Shoreline Amphitheater. That is a skunk cross. And it's really special. It's really funky. And we're doing some crosses with some of the gelato stuff, some RS11. I really like RS11 for its yield. Lately, people have been kind of bagging on it a little bit, and I really like RS11. I think it has its place. I think it's really special. If you know how to grow it, it's really good. It also produces really well. And also, you got to have the right cut, because a lot of what goes around is people have the wrong cut, and they think they have the right cut. And other breeders too. I mean, there's a lot of breeders that are like, oh yeah, I put wedding cake in there. Well, it's like we aren't specifically saying which wedding cake, because there's 30 different phenotypes of it.
Right.
And same thing, there's a lot of cut fishing which goes on, which somebody's like, oh yeah, here's a cut of the Skittles. And it's actually not Skittles, it's lemon tree, or it's this, or it's that.
But you go on
And
thinking.
so they go on thinking, and they're breeding, so they're crossing it with this. So they're like, it's a cross of lemon tree and this. And then there's other seed companies that are just like, yeah, let's not tell people what it really is. We'll just say it's this and this, because other people could recreate it. So a lot of this goes on all the time.
That's a mess.
It's a real big mess. But My Flora DNA, Sergio is actually the one who kind of turned me on to My Flora DNA. So even in my book, we got My Flora contributed some stuff. We use My Flora for fingerprinting.
Genetic fingerprinting.
It's amazing, right? So I love the fact that they're doing fingerprinting. It's really moving the genetics game forward. Eventually, we need something like that, where the breeder supplies the cut. We know because they bred it, they put it in the book, and it's going to be somewhat accurate, right? Phylos started it, and I believe the Phylos Galaxy was interesting.
What happened with those guys?
That's for another podcast, but they had a falling out. So what happened with them?
I remember briefly.
Yeah, so they went and, I'll touch on it. I don't have a problem talking about it really, but Phylos Biosciences, basically, I went to dinner with Ellen a handful of times. They wanted me to put my genetics in the library.
The universe, as they called it.
It was the Phylos Galaxy.
Galaxy.
Yeah. So yeah. And so basically they had a big star chart with everybody's genetics on it, and kind of they showed where it falled into place with other genetics, and they did a lot of testing. But the problem is so much cut fishing. We call it cut fishing. instead of catfishing.
It's a great name for it.
And it goes on a lot. It's rampant, but there's so much of that goes on that a lot of the stuff people put into the galaxy, like OG Kush, for instance. I think there was something like 97 occurrences of other things besides OG Kush that was actually just OG Kush. And a lot of big reputable names were associated with these other things that were actually genetically just OG Kush, right? And so you're only as good as your data, right? And if you're giving bad data and putting bad data, inaccurate data, then you're screwing up the whole galaxy.
That's right.
And so if you can work with the breeders that are crossing this stuff, it doesn't really matter what it was before. If you're making a cross and you're putting it in there and you're putting your fingerprint, then you can test it against other people down the road that are trying to use it as their own or as a way of validating that it's yours, you know?
I remember at one point, James, there was a ownership debate. There was the model, and I could be getting this completely wrong,
Yeah.
but there was a model where, hey, you own your genetics. This is your IP. You're going to enter it in to the Phylos Galaxy, so you can basically claim first to market of this, and future financial royalties or whatever will go back to you. But that's my understanding. But what happened was there is some Benzinga Finance Conference in Florida where the ownership presented a different pitch, where it was now Phylos, the company, owns the genetics in the galaxy. Again, I could be completely off base here.
No. It's very similar, but basically what happened was they sold something that was different than the truth, right? They told all these breeders that we'll protect your data. It's your data. We won't use the data. And in reality, they plan to use the data all along. But I feel like there was guys like Rob Clark that were on their board of directors, which really validated the company.
Street cred.
Oh, yeah. And then as soon as that happened, he withdrew from the board of directors, you know? And I think these things kind of happen. And I saw the writing on the wall when I was beforehand. Yeah. And I liked the idea, but I feel like with that much power
comes great responsibility
and corruption. Right. And so it can easily happen because you start looking at money, right? What's that worth? It's worth a lot of money, right? A lot of money. Information is worth money. Intellectual property is worth a lot of money. Knowledge, the more information you have, the more valuable it is. Something like cannabis, we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar industry. And to collect that amount of data over time is just, it's incredible. And so like companies like MyFlora, that differentiates them from Phylos is we're submitting it, basically it goes in their database, into their galaxy, and it's a fingerprint. It's just 2,000 lines of code that they validate, and it's basically a fingerprint of that one specific plant, of that phenotype, right? And so you won't be able to tell from what they have now if it's a sister, right? Or it's related to, or its parents necessarily. But what you will be able to tell is if it's that exact plant. And I think that's a great starting point for where we're going in the future. I love that about the company. I think we need more testing like that. People need to test for hoplite and viroid. That's a huge one. We work with Apical Biotech, Justin Givens over there, one of my really good friends and business partners. He's the one who does my tissue culture program here. It's a value-added service, but it's so important to have clean genetics. I can't stress that enough. Pest and pathogen clean genetics. We want to make this world a better place, and you start that with clean genetics.
That's right. And, you know, as of today, one of the things that worries me with, again, kind of the centralization of that genetic database is a different industry, but Ancestry.com or 23andMe selling to a BlackRock, you know, mega corporation, who also owns insurance companies and this and this and that. My concern for a company centralizing that much data around the genetics, ownership or not, is selling to a Syngenta or a company like that that will now go in and send cease and desist letters or whatever the legal terminology is for anyone growing a cut that goes against starts to compete with their genetic material that they own. We all know the stories of like a farmer growing this seed, a neighbor's farm that has a Monsanto
Sure.
genetic flies over through the wind and
Gets
now
pollinated.
and now they're sued. I don't want that to happen for
Well,
cannabis.
cannabis and corn are very different, right? I mean, obviously, there's more awareness than there was, right? And so we're aware of what could happen, but also the genetics in cannabis that are out there are basically open for everybody. It's public domain, right? A lot of this stuff. Now we can cross it. We can get specific utility patents, right? For process. Breeding with tissue culture, for example, people breeding using specific types of tissue culture to breed. I mean, there's people that are doing patents like that I've heard of, but actually protecting the genetics. And Mojave Richmond, one of people I
Huge fan of
consider,
Mojave.
yeah, me too, and he's a person I consider a friend. I don't know how much he wants me to share this, but somebody tried to go in and not trademark, but patent his sage cross, right, in Colorado. And something that he created that was genetically something he created, and somebody else was trying to take credit for it. Now, this is going to happen a lot. And so there's a whole section in my book about intellectual property. Dale Hunt wrote the section, he wrote the whole chapter on intellectual property. And going to my book, it's like it was such a big project in myself. Reggie Gaudino wrote the foreword. Him and Kevin McKernan, I believe, are the two foremost authorities. Maybe with Ryan Lee in there somewhere too, because he's another person I extremely respect. But those guys are the authorities on genomics and cannabis genetics. Those are the guys I look up to. Well, I had Reggie. I never even thought Reggie would write the foreword, but I had another guy back out, and then I had asked Reggie to review the book, and he said yes. And I'm like, whoa. I'd met Reggie years back, and I was like, man, I got some really top-notch people reviewing my book. And we had Mojave was one of the people who reviewed it as well.
Top notch.
Top-notch, right? And I feel like I had some people putting in some stuff, and there was over 22 contributors in my book. So it's so much bigger than myself. We had 2 graphic artists. We had multiple photographers. We had our editor. We had a person that did layout. My wife helped edit. She did line editing for the book. And Angela Baca, she's the editor, and she's the one who motivated me for the last, the 9 months before the book came out. I worked with her. She would wake up at 4 a.m. and have a to-do list for me. And so she wouldn't give me another to-do list until the first one was done. So I would work that morning until that was done. Or if I only had so much time, I'd start it the next day and just knock it out. And we did the whole process in about 6 months for the editing, and really just knocked it out of the park. I feel like the book's extremely special. When we talk about legacy, that's part of my legacy.
That's it.
Yeah, and we'll have another version of the book. It's not all done. We're going to have, there's online content. There's actual QR codes in the book that you can go look up. I talked about those data points earlier. You can actually go look the data points up that I use. In the book, there's QR codes for all kinds of stuff. And we're just building that online resource as we speak. So every month, a little bit more is going to come out. I had my buddy James, he wrote the IPM section. So we have an IPM section that's out for the book. So some of the stuff goes beyond cannabis breeding, but it's a lot of fun. And then Matt Schneider that works for Justin Givens, works with him. He's also a part owner of Apical Biotech. He wrote the tissue culture section of the book.
Wow.
And, it's just a fun process. And all this stuff, it focuses back to breeding and genetics, right? Because my main focus is genetics and providing something. It's a solution to a much bigger problem. And part of that is clean genetics. Part of it is quality genetics, and also keeping our pulse on the street, right? What does the street want? What is that changing to?
That candy gas movement
Right now
won't
it's
last
candy
forever.
gas. It was gelato, dessert strains. Now it's candy
Runts.
gas. Runts, LCG.
Lemon cherry gelato.
The stuff that made the Backpack Boys. And those guys have their hand on the pulse too.
Yeah, Juan Quesada.
So it's like, you got to have your hand on the pulse, but you also to have enough diversity to where once we start to pivot, can you pivot in that direction? Can you make something special? Are we going to go towards GMO and the gas that kind of started with Chem D? I really like Chem Dog. I really like Chem D, Chem Sis, Sour Diesel. I would love to see OG Kush and Sour Diesel make a huge comeback, right? Where people were like, whoa, I got some Sour Diesel at Reggae on the River. I met this guy from Butalero. His name's Dave, and he has the real cut of Sour Diesel. Now,
The real.
the real, verified by so many people now. And the deal is, he came to me and was like, man, I want you to smell this and you can be honest with me. I said, okay. And I'm not even sure what he's talking about right at this point. And he's like, I watched your podcast and, it's like you've been talking about Sour Diesel. And I just want to know if this is the real cut. And
He wanted your
he wanted my
confirmation.
opinion at Reggae on the River. And so he comes up with a bud and I smell it and I'm just like, that's it. That's the one. And no looking back. And now I saw him at Emerald Cup. He gave me a jar of it. We're talking about doing a drop in California with it. But regardless, he has the real one. And it really it basically made me realize that cat piss is probably still out there. The one I think that's the real one. Now that's a whole nother discussion, but I love the genetics, the strain cat piss, the cultivar cat piss, the one that I had, the specific phenotype I had is different maybe than the other ones, but it's because it's an aroma. I talk about cat piss a lot, and I really liked the cat piss in the 90s, right? Mid 90s, we had this cat piss that was ammonia and skunk. It wasn't gassy like OG. It just wasn't. It was skunky and it was ammonia and it was nose burning ammonia. Like it would burn your nose and it would smell the whole room up. And I haven't seen it in a long time. I've been talking on my podcast a lot, how I'd love to see it. And people are like, yeah, I got the real cat piss. And then they send me seeds or they send me flour. And what I've determined is that what your real cat piss is probably real cat piss to you. And this other person, that might even be real cat piss too. There's a guy from SoCal. His cat piss is probably his cat piss. And that's what he knows to be cat piss. But my cat piss was special for me. And that's different than anything I've really seen. And I'm super excited to find it again. We're doing some breeding projects along those lines. So part of what we have here is we have 10 tents where we can breed towards specific projects, right? We do a lot of hemp breeding. We're doing CBD, CBG. Also, cat piss is on the radar because I'm trying to get that ammonia skunk.
Do we have some of those samples right here?
We have some samples here, but we don't have any cat piss samples. So
Okay.
This breeding project is going to take a long time.
Yeah.
I'm in it for the long game, right? I'm not in
You're
it for the
bringing
sprint.
cat piss back.
On one way or another, we are bringing cat piss back on some level. And the beautiful thing about breeding, that once you start doing it and you realize it's the long haul, right? That you're in it for the long game. What you do is you start at one place and you breed towards specific goals. You may completely pivot or shift focus at a certain point within that. Find something extremely special that wasn't even intended. And that's the beauty of breeding. And that's what gets me excited is like, okay, we do all these things and sometimes we find some amazing stuff that's super unique.
Maximizing the grow room. Let's talk about that for a moment. It's super important, especially with limited space. And if you're doing it right and your plants are growing nice and healthy, you don't necessarily have all the most room in the world, right? So that is why you should think about Quest. They have integrated hang points, which allow for easier installation and easy access panels to efficiently service and maintain their machines while they're still hung up from the ceiling. So no uninstall necessary. Check them out. When you grow commercially, you have a responsibility to do it sustainably. So introduce Kaya Grow Pots into your facility today. These are grow pots that are produced with biodegradable bags, which are more sustainable to our environment to allow you to hit that double bottom line.
Another thing, like I get super excited about specific profiles. Let's see.
We got a ton of samples here, and these have already been sent off to the lab.
These have been sent off to the lab. And so right here, we got some amazing rosewater terps, right? And so I work with
Rosewater terps.
Yeah, so this is some rosewater Skittles. And You get the rosewater in there. It's got
Damn.
its own unique thing, but it checks the box too, right? So it's one thing having just some amazing terps, but it's another thing when you start getting stuff that has color, right? And checks all the boxes.
That is beautiful.
So yeah, I work with House of Cultivar with pheno hunting up in Washington. We've done breeding together. I've done breeding with a couple companies out there. The guys from Canna Organics, Kyle Cantley, who's been on my show, and Tim Humiston. Also my friend Andrew Jones. He's up in Washington now, but back when we were working together, he was in Fallbrook.
Okay.
And we did some auto flowers, but a lot of pheno hunting, looking for unique terps. Tim had a creme rosé Skittles a long time ago that was extremely special. We found some interesting stuff, and I'm still trying to find. I'm chasing chasing the dragon on that one.
Yeah.
And I do that a lot. I get excited about stuff and then I want it back. And sometimes we lose stuff along the way. Other times the genetics change, because what happens when you pop a seed and you grow it out from seed, you'll get a different expression than the first clonal generation, the second, and maybe even the third. It takes time for that plant to stabilize, right, over time. And so what you get initially could be different. So now if I'm growing for indoor, I don't even pheno hunt from seed. A lot of people are like, oh, that's when you get some of the best stuff. Yes, it is. But if I can't have that for the long haul, and I plan on selling clones, because part of what we do is nursery, we're about to go direct to consumer with clone sales. Once we do our pheno hunt, we have all this really cool stuff.
You can just buy it right through your website?
You'll be able to buy clones through our website.
Whoa.
You know, tissue culture clones, right? Everything's from tissue culture, pest pathogen free, direct to your doorstep. We have a nice little shipper, all that stuff. But when you're pheno hunting, I don't start from seed. If I'm gonna be selling clones, if it's gonna be something I license down the road, we start with the first clonal generation, right? We get rid of that seed start completely. I don't ever want to look at it. I don't want to ever hear from it again, because I can't have that. Now, if I plan on selling acres of seeds to somebody and I create this cross specifically for field production, I really only care about that seed, right? So what does it look like from seed when we grow out that first clonal generation? If they're or not first clonal, the Gen 0 from seed, that's what I want to know. Where that first clonal generation isn't really as important. What happens when we put seeds out? Is there intersex traits? Does it yield? How does it perform? And then let's try it in multiple climates so we can go, okay, well, you're in Oregon, maybe you don't want to grow this. Or you're in New York, man, this goes a little bit long. You don't want to grow this over here. And these are really the goals we're working towards with breeding. And I think these are super important questions that you should have. Are you growing it from seed? Or are you going to be growing it from clone? Now, if you're growing it from clone, do you really need that seed? You want to waste 90 days or 100 days to see what it does from seed? Maybe that's your preference. Because really at the end of the day, all these genetics are just an expression of the breeder, right? It's just like food with a chef. They're putting this plate. It's an expression of the chef and how he interprets it.
That's right.
Same thing with the genetics. It's like my interpretation to the world on what I think good cannabis is, right? And it's not just me. We have a team. We have other guys. I got Jason Hutto from House of Cultivar. He gives me a lot of honest feedback. Sometimes this stuff I don't want to hear, but I really want to hear it.
But you need to hear it.
I need to hear it.
Yeah.
And then we've got Kyle Cantley over in Washington. He does some amazing stuff. This guy grows organic living soil. I think he's kind of switching to like a more synganic model, but he grows some of the best weed I've ever smoked. Boutique flower, tastes absolutely amazing. And he's doing his own stuff that's extremely special with his pheno hunting. And I love collaborating with these guys, right? And then I have cultivation partners like SF Canna, right? And these guys are doing special stuff. And, we'll check their grow out when you go over there with me. Really amazing. Their quality level is so high. We went through almost 100 different phenotypes of a cross that I think there was some really special stuff, and only saved 2.
Damn. They are
only
like
saved 2.
1%.
They want the 0.1%.
Yeah.
Right? Out of 1,000 genetics out there, 1,000 crosses out there, they want that 1, or they want that 2.
They're the strain hunters.
They are that strain hunters on another level.
Yeah.
Now I got my own strain hunter that works with me, and his name is Fritzy. He's German.
Fritzy.
He is a character. He's going to be...
Sounds like a character.
Oh, yeah. And he's going to be making it regular. He's a big guy. He's like 6'2", massive German guy who's exploring India and Asia
right now,
looking for seeds. He's next week he goes down there.
Wow.
Right. And so
Safe
he finds
travels
we have
to
70
Fritzy.
land raises. So we have 70 landrace varieties from Fritzy that he's already supplied us, and we're going to be doing some shows together to talk about those genetics. I'm going to be offering some of those to the world in the form of seeds, but we're also pheno hunting some of those to see how they perform in different climates out here. So Mojave said it best though, landrace genetics. As soon as they leave the land, the race is over.
Damn.
That's so legit, right? That is so legit.
Mojave.
That is Mojave, you know?
He is a poet.
He is a poet. He's a musician too, but he's absolutely a poet, but he's super, super smart.
Damn.
And
as soon as the land race leaves the land, the race is over.
right.
Damn.
So, and people that don't know, land race, that doesn't mean that it's feral, that it was just grown in the wild. Land race genetics are basically taken and cultivated over multiple generations for a specific use, right? And so these land race varieties all over have all had uses in their specific environments, right? But then once you take it out of that climate and out of that environment, you're completely changing the genetics. So you're not going to get that expression because you're taking it out of the place that it was created in for a specific use.
How could it continue to express itself that way?
And maybe you'll get something amazing out of it. Don't get me wrong. There's totally amazing stuff out there that you can get from landrace genetics, but you're not going to get that expression, right? And so one thing you will get is diversity. And that's the one thing we need the most.
Stressing it in different environments that it couldn't get in its original
right. And there's a lot of work. People don't understand. They think landrace, I mean, some of this stuff is the ugliest weed. I also love ugly weed. So it's cat piss, right? It goes down to the
I was
cat
just
piss.
going back to cat piss.
Yeah, everything goes back to cat piss. And cat piss is so special because what it made me realize from a very early age, because when I got it, it was my favorite thing. But ugly weed can be better than good looking weed. We're in this age of Instagram where social media has made cannabis have to look amazing. It has to have this bag appeal. People think that's what I want. Look how amazing that is.
The gram
it's got frosted
comes before the bag.
Right.
You know, the store shelf.
Well, people eat with their eyes, right?
Yeah.
And so
the phone eats first.
The phone eats first, right? You know who said that originally?
Who?
Miami Mango.
Really?
He's where I got that from.
He coined that?
I believe Miami Mango.
Damn, Alex.
Yeah. Mango's the man. So I say that all the time too. And it's true, but we eat with our eyes, whether it's cannabis or whatever. And so there is that bag appeal aspect, but also there's that whole commercial side of it where is it commercially viable to grow this genetic if we're going to do 100 lights? Do I want to grow Skittles? Because Skittles doesn't yield as well. Skittles is more finicky. Maybe I have to put 25 plants per 4x4 instead of 16. I mean, there's all these things, and maybe I can get a yield that's worthy of production.
Right.
Right. And so, because I work with amazing cultivators, but these guys grow at scale. So a lot of the stuff I do, I mean, I have stuff for the boutique market. We have stuff on the James Loud website. We sell packs of seeds that people buy in their home growers. But then a lot of what I'm doing now is really gearing up towards selling genetics to cultivators at scale. And part of that box, unfortunately, is how does it perform in a commercial environment? How long does it flower? Because I don't want a 70-day flower. At least that's what a lot of guys will tell me, right? I like some stuff that's a 75, 77-day cultivar. Sour diesel, that's a great example. Something that should go 77 days, 11 weeks. I love that stuff. But how many guys with their commercial environment are going to dedicate a lot of lights to growing something that takes a lot longer when I have something that finishes in 53 days, like Skittles, or I have a 45-day cultivar. We have, so SF Canada, they found a 42-day, 3-pound purple cultivar, and
money.
That one has a lot of potential, right? Not just from growing, but also from a breeding perspective. So we can take that and we can really analyze how we got there. So if we're talking about 42 days of flower,
Grown
you're
in
getting
United Nutrients and Kaya.
absolutely. And then how many more harvests a year, or in 5 years, how many extra harvests did we get? And if we have X amount of lights, how much money did that make us?
Mm.
All those things are important for commercial cultivation.
Yeah. Let's say that I am representing commercial cannabis facility, greenhouse down in Colombia, let's say Bogota, one of the farms that we filmed, and you got me on the line. I'm reaching out to source James Loud Genetics. Sell me here.
Well, so first of all, I need to find out what you're doing, what you're looking for, what are the boxes that you're looking to check,
Okay.
right? And then come out to the facility, look at what we have, sit down in our podcast table, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of it's in-house, it's all in the same building, and then we can talk about it. We can look at genetics that would work well for your environment. I can take you around to cultivation partners that I have. We can look at stuff up in Humboldt and Mendocino. We can also go look at indoor facilities. We can talk to guys that are using multiple different substrates. And I think my reputation is out there where people can really research who I am and what I do. And also exporting tissue culture. We can export tissue culture plants. So we can export that anywhere in the world that's allowing import. We can export plants right now in the form of tissue culture because it falls under the Farm Bill. It is considered hemp.
So you can do that right now down to Colombia.
Down to Colombia, we can go to
import-
South Africa.
Okay.
My partner Justin, he's really dialed at. Yeah, the export game is really good right now.
We're going to meet with him in his facility tour for Starts, right? Justin
yeah.
Givens.
Totally.
Yeah, so we'll get to talk with him and Fred kind of about the whole export market. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
And typically when someone calls you, are they working with multiple breeders? Are they looking just for one?
I would say that I'm open to working with everybody, and I don't
Okay.
mind. You don't have to be exclusive to me. I do licensing deals. If you want to sell seeds and pheno hunt your own, I have stuff that's off menu. We can talk about that. We can really just talk about what your goals are and how can I empower you to get better results, right?
Right.
So it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's a business, right? So like we're going and we're trying to take it to the next level.
It's got to
Like,
make sense.
it's got to make sense for everybody, right? And then whether you're in South Africa, Germany, whether you're all over, it doesn't matter. As long as you can import or you can allow import, we can actually
Right.
get in tissue culture plants. We can bring seeds in.
And would you
we have-
recommend like a different cultivar for us, let's say the Colombian facility, exporting into the Aussie market versus German market?
Well, so really we need to start looking at what your goals are. Are your goals yield? Do I want yield of THC? Do I want yield of CBD? Do I want yield of CBG? Right? And then, or are terpenes important? Are we going to press it into rosin? Are we going to extract it? Are we going to grow whole flower? Is it a boutique flower that we're looking for that doesn't necessarily have to yield, but it really has to check those boutique boxes to provide top shelf flower for the market? So there's so many boxes and everybody has a different opinion on what quality is. So it's really about identifying what those boxes are. Is color important? Because if you're extracting it, color is not important, right? But if you're selling top shelf flower and you're trying to sell it in a market like California, these guys are going to want color. You want color in this market. But also, you're probably going to want something that yields pretty well, that finishes in around 63 days or less, right? And then also, is it susceptible to botrytis? Is it susceptible to powdery mildew? These things are extremely important, and then that's on the indoor side. Now, if we look at outdoor, it's like, how does it perform in similar climates? If it's a greenhouse, how does it perform in similar climates? Greenhouse, you can manipulate some, but still a lot of greenhouses, unless you're going full Venlo and you put in a lot of money, you're still having to deal with climate.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to me about price. Is there a global benchmark price to your genetics versus someone else's?
I mean, everything varies. You're going to see, it's just like everything else. Like it varies, and you're going to see cheap seeds in Europe that are, 14 cents a piece. And you're going to see my seeds that are $1 a piece, right? At scale. And we're talking about 100,000 seeds. Even $2 for some of the seeds, right? And then if we're talking about licensing genetics, I mean, that's all over the place, right? So if we're talking about you want to license something specific for Colombia, I can do that too. We can sell you something that Nobody else in Colombia is ever going to get, but we're going to sell it to the rest of the world. Now, if you want to buy that exclusively, that's completely different. That's a whole nother conversation. That means no one else can have it. And so with all the amount of R&D that we've done, now how do we price that? It's going to be expensive, right?
That's tough. It's a premium.
Right. And there's so many different models that work within that, right? And so same thing with the states. We're looking at different states to be able to license genetics in different places. That excites me too. So, and also collaboration. I love collaborating with people. I'm so big into collaboration. I love working with cultivators all over the US and all over the world. So there's the collaboration side. Where can we put our stamp on that makes sense for us, right? And makes sense for the other person. So, because with these collaborations, you want it to be a win-win where both parties walk away and they're like, dude, that was great. Let's do this again. Let's do this. Like we have with Grow World. I feel like the collaborative effort on both of our parts has been really good. You guys provide stuff, and I also provide services for the customers. And it ends up being this three-way win for all of the parties.
Yeah.
It's like I've been able to meet so many people through Grow World as being an ambassador, which has been really special to me, by the way.
Good, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, you have such a good team together, and you guys are super organized for the most part.
Yeah.
Just like us, for the most part, we are super organized. And the amount of options I have, whether it's lighting or substrate or nutrition, and I like testing all these things out. And, it's like we're not in competition with each other, with the other ambassadors either. We're all friends for the most part. Right. And I love talking to these guys. I love talking to the guys on the podcast. We just had JP from Good Pizza.
Oh, dope.
And he's really good. And he was great on the show. And from the podcast guys, I'm not in competition with anybody, and neither are they. We're all doing our own thing. We all have our own specialties. I think mine is diversity. With my podcast, we try to have the most amount of diverse guests. And I want to hear from everybody because I feel like we're storytellers and we're painting the history of cannabis in the modern world, right?
We really are.
Yep.
And you've seen kind of version 1 of Grow World. Believe it or not, we just hit our 1 year mark.
Yeah.
As of today, I think I woke up and we hit 1,000 members, which is pretty dope. I put out there for our team, we opened up more or less August 1st of last year. So I told the team like, hey, give us 1 year, 1,000 members, and we'll check back in and see where we're at. And that's exactly what we hit. We fucking hit the mark exactly.
That's awesome.
Thank you. V2, at least for the user experience of the commercial grower, right? When they join Grow World right now, there's a membership application. They get paired with an account manager. We call them a Grow World expert. They help kind of figure out how they grow, and then they place them into campaigns.
Yeah.
V2, we've actually built a software to streamline all of that. So when you join Grow World, the front end is only a handful of questions now, so you're in much faster. And then on the back end, once we do that phone call with the account manager, understanding your problems, challenges, your style of growing as well, we actually pre-qualify you for every campaign that checks those boxes, So if you are at a certain scale of growing in a certain location, we have over 30 countries on the platform right now. Not everyone's going to ship around the world.
Right.
But if you're pre-qualified, then literally you just click a button instead of having to apply to every single individual trial. You just click a button, say, hey, I want Kaya Coco Core. I want United Nutrients. And then it just shows up at your facility.
Yeah.
And then you begin the trial, of course. So we're always trying to speed this up. And, hopefully with your guys' feedback, right? Well, just like you, we were talking about Kaizen, right? Constant self-improvement. We're looking this as a overall model. How can we get better, faster, and help our growers?
Yeah, we're in an amazing time in history with cannabis and the direction it's going and experiencing this on a global scale.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really beautiful thing that's being unfolded. In the United States, we take steps forward and backwards
All the time.
But it's like starting to snowball on a global scale. We're talking about countries like Brazil. That's, Germany. If you would have told me 5 years ago Germany was going to go online before the United States, I would have said you're crazy. But then same thing, it's funny, like even Texas, right? I think it's on the bill this year to Dallas is putting it on the bill, even though some of the lawmakers are against it or questioning it. They're putting on the bill in Dallas to decriminalize cannabis.
Really?
Yeah, and I just read that today.
Just in Dallas?
Just in Dallas.
Wow.
Right?
That's massive.
But that's massive for Texas. I would have thought Austin.
Yeah,
You
that
know what
would
I
be
mean?
my
I would
first
have
guess,
totally
right?
thought Austin where all the Democrats are.
Yeah.
The Republicans are in Dallas. you know?
Damn.
But this is turning into a bipartisan thing, not just Democrats
It
or
is.
Republicans.
70% or more of Americans want to legalize cannabis,
Yeah,
something
more
like
now.
that.
It's more now. It's more than 70%.
We're at like 80. I mean, it's like, at what threshold do we need to hit for a landslide? We're
Well,
there.
Big Pharma is very against it until they figure out how to monetize it fully, right? So
Right?
it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. We have so much, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, so much change ahead of us in our country. But for me, I wouldn't say I'm jaded or like over the American market. I just don't want to hold my breath. I'd rather just go start to plant the seed and tell the story of these global countries and markets opening up. And who knows, maybe 5-6 years from now when the American market's ready and we can start exporting our actual weed from here to the rest of the world or vice versa, then we'll come back home and start filming around here. But for now,
No, you got a lot to cover.
yeah,
There's so many countries
so much
to cover. And the fact that you're doing it in the Bay Area right now, Sacramento and the Bay, I mean, the best of the best are here, in my opinion.
That's it. That's why we're here. This is our first and last American tour for Grow World.
Yeah, and we got Planta coming up to the Bay now. We got Derek from Planta that's working up here. I'm super excited to have him on my podcast. They grow some of the best fire I smoked this year.
Yep.
SF Canada, they're just producing top of the top.
Yeah.
Flora and Flame, those guys are Bay Area. If you have a chance to tour with them, they have an amazing indoor 2-tier double stack living soil growing in beds. It's wild.
Double stack living soil. I've never heard of that.
No,
seen that.
I'd never seen it, and I still haven't seen anybody else doing it. I've heard of other people doing it, but yeah, I mean, pushing the envelope, and they're in Oakland. It's like Oakland's tough enough as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were to redesign the American cannabis market as of today, let's say whoever this new president is gives you a call. Hey, James, heard a lot about you. You have a carte blanche to redesign how the American federal market will exist. How would you do it?
Oh, the first thing is to allow interstate commerce. I wouldn't redesign what's necessarily been done before or like undo the mistakes that we made in the past. Those are mistakes. But moving forward, what we need to do is get interstate commerce going right away.
Yeah.
We have California, and part of the problem is we're not allowed to export it. People are talking about the problem with the black market, right? The second we have export, the demand goes up. And if the demand goes up, the price goes up. And right now, because of taxation, so many people are hurting. So the first thing we need is interstate commerce, right? We need to take people and get people out of prison.
Yes.
People do not belong in prison for cannabis. There's too many people making too much money off it for there to be people in prison that have gotten prison sentences for cannabis. That needs to go away right away. That should be fast-tracked by our next president. But I do see both parties right now are trying to get votes from the cannabis industry. People that are fans of cannabis, they see them as potential voters, and they're talking about having it as part of their bill, right?
Swinging.
They're talking about, and I think just the fact that we have two candidates, Democrat and Republican, both saying that they're going to have cannabis reform when they get into office is a sign that it's important to the government right now, that they see it as a threat. They see it as something that holds value. And if it's that way, we talked about on my show when it's going to be legal. Is it going to be 5 years? And I'm right on board with that 5 years because I feel like if we're talking about it right now and we have 80% of the people on board and both politicians on both sides of the spectrum are talking about it, the next election is going to be partially based on, if they haven't passed it already, is it going to be legal? So it should happen in the next 5 years. I would love to see federal legalization across the board, recreational in all 50 states, by 2029, right? So we're in 2024. So 5 years from now,
5 years.
2028, 2029, it happening by then. I sure hope it does. I'm banking on it. I would love to have cultivation and nursery partners in every state. I don't grow flower. We're hemp. What I do is
Yeah.
consider, it's THCA. We don't have Delta 9 in the building. I don't grow flower, not for anything other than pheno hunting. And so I'm not going to change that. The flower side, we have our lifestyle brand. We got some clothing with that. We do collaborations. I want to collaborate with people to empower them to do that, to give them the best genetics. It goes back to the Gore-Tex, right? I want to be Gore-Tex for the Nikes. And I want to work with all the Nikes and the Adidas and all the guys out there. I don't see any of them as competition. I only see collaboration.
Yeah.
And it excites me to be able to work with guys like SF Canna, guys like House of Cultivar, Earth's Healing in Arizona. I can just go, the list goes on and on and on. Sunburn Cannabis in Florida. There's so many great brands out there that I want to collaborate with. And I don't need to be the grower. I don't need to be the cultivator. I can be the genetics guy that collaborates with these cultivation partners that do such a good job. I can just stay in my lane and hyper focus on the genetic side of it. So, and there's a handful of guys really doing a good job with genetics out there. So it's really impressive. The bottlenecking we've done with gelato, I mean, I would undo that. That's one thing. Like, I love diversity. I love diversity on all levels. Amsterdam and the Netherlands bottlenecked haze, right? Once haze got popular, 90s, early 2000s, everything was amnesia haze. Everything was all these
They
different hazes.
bottlenecked it in the sense of controlling.
No, they had all this diversity, right? Before haze, there was all this diversity. Then what happened is they like haze. And this is all because we're people and we want what we want. And that's what we want. Cookies was a sign of that. We had OG Kush, the exotics of its day. Like back in the day, we had the Kushes, right? There was Hindu Kush. That was like what the exotic is now. Everybody that smokes Hindu knows what I'm talking about. The Hindu was something special. Then there was like the OG Kush, the Bubba Kush, the Master. And those were kind of the exotics that really were down in LA and kind of made a name for themselves, along with Chem 91, Sour Diesel. Sour Diesel was super special, especially East Coast, even though it was cultivated in California. And then came Cookies, right? And that was a Bay Area thing.
Yeah.
That was the Bay Area thing that hit the map, and it was like, that's Bay Area, right?
Caleb kind of kicking that off, right?
It was more the Cookie fam that really
Cookie fam.
popped. So with Cookies, it was, we had Flux, we had Jigga, we had Sherbinsky, we had Burner, we had Pie Guy, Kenny Powers, we had him crushing it. And there was some other guys behind the scenes, but they really blew it up on another level especially for the Bay Area, because there was other stuff that came out of the Bay Area. GDP came out of the Bay Area, and a number of other strains, another good genetics, all the way from Santa Cruz to, through Humboldt. There was a lot of amazing genetics that popped off. Whether, train wreck, stuff like that. Even Santa Cruz had the skunks. They were the reason Amsterdam had the good genetics they had was because of Santa Cruz.
Damn.
And the Hayes brothers. We had, Blue Dream was a thing. But it all started to change with Cookies, right? 2012, I won a cup with Cookies, right? It was Cookies Cross. It was the first time Cookies won a cup, was in Amsterdam in 2012 in the hybrid category. That kind of changed, not that just, but the genetics, Cookies, changed the landscape. The breeding that was done with Cookies, it was also very unstable, had a lot of intersex traits, very genetically unstable also. And so you get a lot of phenotypical expression, where some stuff doesn't give you a lot of phenotypical expression. Like Blue Dream, you get 4 phenotypes. You cross and make an S1, you get 4. Cookies, it's all over the board. Gelato basically came and stole the show from the Sherb. The Sunset Sherb never fully got its day. Sunset Sherb was one of my favorite cultivars that never really fully got its potential out there, because Gelato came so quickly after that and really dominated the market. And then the whole bottlenecking began, right? Skittles kind of played a part in that with the candy. Before Skittles came out, Subcool had a wide variety of sweet stuff and candy and orange flavors. DNA had their Tangy that kind of helped pave the way for the dessert strains that came. That was like the most awarded genetic ever. The most awarded thing through High Times was Tangy. Before that, I think Ariane had some stuff. He was one of the most awarded breeders of all time. And then Tangy hit starting in 2013, and that kind of changed the landscape. And then Gelato really started, the bottlenecking began, and it got smaller and smaller and smaller. The diversity away. Tangy went away. Sour turned into Gorilla Glue. The growers that were growing the best sour all started growing Gorilla Glue because it was gassy, it yielded better, and it finished earlier, right? And a lot of that stuff was outdoor. And so sour kind of faded away. Also, Hoplite and Vero had made a contribution to why people went away from sour diesel. But the landscape changed, and then it was gelato, gelato, gelato. And then we're here in 2024, and most of the market wants gelato, gelato derivatives. And the problem with that is the lack of diversity. People are crossing this with this. They're crossing a gelato 41 to a gelato 33. Well, what you're doing is not creating a true outcross. You're inbreeding.
You're inbreeding,
right?
yeah.
And so, or you're crossing gelato 41 times this with gelato 41. Gelato 41 is pretty special, by the way. You know, Caleb pheno hunted gelato 41, right? And, you know, so all these guys played this huge role in making the market what it is today. And I don't hate the market because it is what it is, but I believe we need more diversity. So I work with cool stuff like Fort Collins Cough, which is an NL5 Haze cross from Fort Collins, Colorado. That's another Grateful Dead strain. I got that times Banana Skittles. I got some Shoreline. I got these from one of my good friends, but also Chem 91, and throwing stuff back in the mix that's a little bit different. You know, apples and bananas is pretty special. I got a little bit of history with that one.
Oh, I know.
And yeah, so I think that's a pretty special one. And what's special with that is it reminds me of the old school GDP terps, but it's not GDP because I don't like growing GDP, but I do like growing apples and bananas, even though it's a finicky plant. Now we can talk about what's wrong with apples and bananas. It's finicky. And so Cookies released it and gave it out to all the cultivators out there. They didn't tell anybody how to grow it. And the problem with that is you just grow it how you grow it, and then it goes in bags, and people try it, and they're like, I don't really like apples and bananas, right? But apples and bananas is special. It's good. It burns down to the roach. Amazing. Shout out to Chris Compound for apples and bananas. I mean, that is an amazing, amazing, amazing smoke. There's so much stuff that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as what I like to smoke a little bit of everything. I like my Skittles. I also like my Super Silver Haze. Depends on the day. Do I like to smoke one way? I like joints. I like dabbing. I have a big thing for my nectar collector, and I have a little dipper that I hit quite a bit. But I'm always looking for new stuff. I feel like we're explorers when it comes to pheno hunting, and it's like gelato haze is pretty good too. I have I think I have it here somewhere. It's Mexican haze times gelato 41. Yeah, check this out. This one is extremely special to me.
Oh, man.
I got a great story with that one too. I went down to Mexico City, and it has the look of the gelato, but it almost has like a cleaning product smell to it.
It does.
And it's not super hazy, but it's definitely got that cleaner. It smells like a little Windexy.
Fabuloso.
It does smell a little bit like Fabuloso, right? For sure. And so I gifted a bunch of those seeds. I went to Mexico City and spoke in 2022 and went down with Adam from Archive. And I brought down seeds to sell, and I realized the people there didn't have the kind of money that...
Different market, different
economy. Market. Down in Mexico City, these people are super passionate about cannabis, but they did not have the money to buy seeds, right? And so I ended up giving all the seeds away. So we gave a ton of those seeds away. It was a great experience. I might be going back this year. We'll see.
Hit me up if you do. I live not too far away.
I'm big on Polanco. That's my favorite
That's
area.
the spot, man.
That's the spot.
I'll take you to a couple of my favorite restaurants down there.
Yeah, it's great. Mexico City's fun. I really enjoyed Mexico City. So, and I've been to other places in Mexico for sure. But in Cancun and, Baja is great,
Mm-hmm.
but it's different than Mexico City. Mexico City, the diversity is pretty cool.
It's its own world, man.
It is, and they have you get a little bit of all of Mexico in that one city, and it's
Yeah.
huge. It's huge. It's not
Yeah.
big like Bogota. Bogota is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
They're to me, they're both insane. Like just
Yeah.
walking around, you could just get lost. There's
Yeah.
it's like a concrete jungle.
yeah. So what are your favorite areas in Mexico City?
I live in Guadalajara,
Oh, nice.
Jalisco.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like hometown for me.
The home of the tequila.
Yeah, that's right. I absolutely love it there. I lived in Puerto Vallarta for some time as well. Made my way to South America. I lived a brief stint in Ecuador,
Nice.
close to Colombia and Peru. But yeah, Guadalajara, Jalisco, that is where I call home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've been all over though. I mean, living down there, right? They make it pretty easy to kind of pop around. I just went to Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and Cozumel
Yeah.
for the first time. So enjoyed it over there. Right after this tour, I'm actually going to Oaxaca.
Yeah.
So I'm going to the city and then kind of Puerto Escondido area.
So one of my good friends from Mexico City gave me some Oaxacan times Malawi, which I'm actually growing in my backyard this year.
Really?
It's amazing, and it's like the craziest terp profile. It's super funky.
Yeah.
Almost disgusting. So some people smell it, they're like, whoa, you're going to smoke that? And I'm like, that's going to be amazing.
You got that cat piss,
Oh, yeah.
kind of
I'm always looking for
Profile.
wild things. I get
Palate.
excited. My buddy gave me some African haze. Same guy with the sour diesel. He had some African haze, African landrace. That was like little pearls. It looked like twigs with little pearls on it, and you would take those the pearls off and smoke them. And the taste wasn't anything super special. It was a little funky smelling. It's a little funky, but the high was special. So it's like, I think my one takeaway from this year, as far as for breeding, is that I need to put a refocus and a re-emphasis on breeding for effect.
Yeah.
For since 2018 especially, I lost that somewhere along the line. And then my friend Dave passed on 420. Damn it, Dave. And Dave Mesford, he helped start Cannafest. He was one of the founders of Cannafest. He helped with, they're big time. Hempfest.
Yeah.
He was one of the big volunteers for Hempfest. He introduced me to Hempfest.
Out of Seattle, right?
Out of Seattle.
Yeah.
Right. And so he passed on 420 of cancer. And, we had some really interesting conversations the week before he passed away.
Wow.
And we had filmed a podcast with him. The week before he died, on Friday and Saturday, I filmed a podcast with him. I knew he was going to go. He called me and I was like, man, I really want to get up there. I'll see if I can be there Monday. And he said, well, I'll try to make it to Monday. And part of the conversation we had is the importance of breeding for effect. And I think so many of us, I mean, I'm a chef, so no fault of my own, but I really love flavor. And I feel like there is the tie between flavor and effect, but we really need to start refocusing back to how does it make you feel? He has a strain called the Blue 13, which is blueberry haze times Louis the 13th from Kevin Jodry over at Wonderland Nursery that he got. And that is super special, and it has this amazing effect. It's like this feel-good weed. And the day he passed, I smoked a huge joint of it. And it was one of those things where I'm like, he got something here. Not only with the genetics, but the emphasis on breeding for effect, right? And then I had Johnny from Huckleberry Hill Farms and Jason from Ridgeline on the show, and he gave me some of his Whitethorn Rose. If you ever get a chance to try Whitethorn Rose, it's extremely special.
Rose.
And if you've never smoked the two, which most people haven't, there's only one other person I know that have smoked both the Whitethorn and the Blue 13. They have the same effect. They're both really feel-good weed. You couldn't consider them sedative. You couldn't consider them a stimulant. They're somewhere in the middle. But it brought me back to why I like cannabis, why I think this plant is so special, because of the effect, right? And when you smoke something like that, there's not a lot of things I've tried throughout history where it's like, it just makes me feel amazing. It makes me feel good. a lot of stuff I smoke makes me feel good. It makes me feel awake. It makes me feel tired. It makes me feel good. This stuff takes it to that next level of, man, this is really good stuff. I could just smoke this all the time. And I feel like if more people were able to try that,
Their daily driver.
they would get the same results as I got. And I thought I was crazy at first, where I was like, these two things have the same effect. But then I talked to my friend in Montana, and her name is Carrie, and her last name's slipping my mind, but she's a ganjier. And she's really amazing because she's the only person up to this point that has tried both of those things and gotten the same feedback. And so I was like, well, I'm not crazy. It was great. When his memorial service, I met her for the first time, and we were both in conversation about the Blue 13 and the White Thorn Rose, and came up with the same conclusion. I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. As far as for breeding for effect, I'm refocusing all this to how does this make you feel? I love the way it smells. I love the way it tastes, but really, let's go back to the effect and how does it make you feel? And why, once we can find out, okay, let's look at the good stuff that makes you feel this way. Now let's compare all these cultivars and figure out what it is that makes you feel so special. Is it a specific ratio of CBD to THC to THCV or CBN or CBC or any of these, more minor cannabinoids, or is it the terpenes? I think there's a lot of emphasis on the terpenes. My guess is there's a specific terpene with White Thorn Rose that they've identified. Now we need to have some Blue 13 to compare. And maybe it is cannabinoids and terpenes would be my ultimate guess is, my best educated guess is that it's a combination of cannabinoids and terpenes, and it's these right ratios, and it's something to do with them. Maybe it's one specific terpene that really puts it over the top because they make me feel so amazing. But maybe it's this combination because it's all about the entourage effect, and it's typically not just one thing that makes it feel a certain way. And a lot of times we're like talking about terpenes, when Abstracts Tech posted this white paper right as I was editing my book. I had to change my book because of Abstract Tech. They created
It was that good.
6 white papers, and they were on flavorants. And I was like, flavorants? I've never even heard of flavorants. Well, you start diving into flavorants, and it's sulfur compounds, it's other molecules besides just terpenes, right? So we're talking about thiols, right? And thiols are smaller molecules. They're very hard to measure. And they did a really good job at breaking it down and explaining that most of the things we smell aren't necessarily terpenes, but flavorants. And I love they coined the term. We included it in the book. Big shout out to Abstracts Tech. They're doing a great job in pushing the plant forward, researching and putting out really good, high quality research and data. And I love that because a lot of times we get these guys putting out data, and some of it's very one-sided or opinionated and not necessarily true. But there are people putting out good data.
Absolutely. And as we kind of look to, let's say, the next 5 to 10 of James Loud brand specifically, you have a podcast,
Yeah.
you have breeding, you have this new book. What's beyond that? What do you want to do in the next 5 to 10?
I mean, you can expect to see a lot of collaboration, but don't expect me to veer too far away from my goal of providing good, amazing genetics. Yeah, we'll have another version of the book out. You'll see me working with guys in other states, collaboration, cultivation partners, genetics all over the world. I would love to see we're already all over the world, but
Right.
taking it to that next level where you'll see the brand in other countries. I would love that. Germany. We are selling seeds in Europe, but that's going to go bigger with distribution. We're taking one step at a time, and we're trying to do it the best we can. And so 5 years from now, we'll see. We're going to be doing a lot of collaboration, and I love the collaboration model, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's with Grow World or Marlon Asher or the government in St. Vincent, I'm big on all of it. And as long as it's in line with our vision, that's where you'll find me. Right. So I think exploring stuff from a drug perspective, if we're looking for drug discovery, I would love to dive into drug discovery with a collaborative effort from other companies. As far as our brand, you'll see our lifestyle brand is going to pop this year. We have Loud, so our brand right here, this is Loud Times. That's going to pop. You've seen some of the slides and stuff.
Yeah.
We've been experimenting with different things. We have a vision board. So we buy one of it and then we chew on it. Like, is this what we want to release? This t-shirt design, everything has to be in line with the brand and the model,
Of course.
and that's the beauty of having a partner like I have. I can really focus on what goes in the package. He can focus on the outside of the package and how we can do the branding. Of course, I like my input on the branding and stuff like that too, but he thinks so much differently than me. It's so great having a collaborator, because a partner should be a collaborator that does something completely different than myself. And having that, it becomes the perfect balance. There's not two James Louds. There's James and there's Eric, and we both fit together under the James Loud brand. And my name does go on it, but he deserves as much credit for me as what we've done up to this point as I do. There's so many people, that this is so much bigger than myself. And I love that, being part of something so much bigger than myself, because I see myself as a collaborator with the whole industry, and I'm just doing my part. Pride is a really weird thing. A lot of people are you proud of yourself? I have a hard time saying I'm proud of myself, but what I am proud of is being part of something so much bigger than myself.
I love
and
that.
being able to play a huge role in that, or even a minor role, depending on how you look at it. But I feel my role with my podcast, I think we've had impact, right? And to have impact is so great. I love having impact and doing something that's important, giving back. We're going to give back as much as we can. I love giving back. I love sharing. We had some ambassadors that have been able to help us, and so we've been able to help them. My boy Rue from Texas, he's great, and we're going to continue to have ambassadors and empower our ambassadors to do better. And they help us so much, and I feel like this is just a whole lot of fun, and I'm going to keep doing this till it's not fun anymore. As far as retiring, I don't know about retirement. I think I would like to retire someday where I can spend 3 months of the year in Seattle. I can spend 2 months in Barcelona, time in the Bay Area,
There you go.
time in the Caribbean, time in Mexico.
1 month in Mexico. Come on.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I think that's in my future for sure, but I have a lot of work to do. Life is very short. I think there's a lot of opinions on that. People are like, oh, life can be so long. It's just all about perspective. Well, my perspective is life is short. Do whatever you can now because you have the opportunity to do it. That opportunity might not be there tomorrow. Your health might not be there tomorrow. I've tried to re-put an emphasis on health for me and the people around me, because I feel like you need to have the people around you supporting things like health. If your friends are healthy, you're more likely going to be healthy.
right.
If your friends are successful, it's more likely that you're going to be successful. And I have successful friends. I'm very blessed to have friends that are successful at the level they're successful at. The producer for our show, Ryan, he works for some amazing companies, and the level of stuff that he does is at its highest caliber, and then all the people I work with, they, outside of what they've done with James Loud Genetics, is at a high caliber. And so working with those people, that gets me excited.
Yeah.
Just talking about that gets me excited.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to continue this path. Starting today with the podcast. We have MJ BizCon in Vegas this year. We have Cannabis in Portugal and Spain a little bit later, going into next year.
Mary Jane
in Germany, man. So let's get after it. Let's see
Thailand.
each other. Thailand. We're building out the next year of working together. I'm super blessed. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to doing more of this. Right on.
Thank you so much for listening to the Grow World podcast. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. Until next time.